In studio, my guy, Chuck Marlow, Charlie Marlow. I don't know if you're familiar with this medium. This is radio, talk radio. I think you've done it. We've done shows in the past.
Sure.
Somebody online said not the midday grind. Did they say the midnight grind or mid-afternoon? I've already forgotten what they
Middle
tweeted.
Relief.
Well,
Middle Relief. Wait, was that me and you?
No.
That was Rennie Knott and I. What were we?
Do you honest? Midday grind.
Oh, yeah, midday
You don't
grind.
remember?
But I've had so many failed midday shows with bad names that it's hard to keep track of them.
Middle Relief, was Burwell on there with you?
So I think it started Burwell, Strauss, myself. Was that called Middle Relief? I don't remember, honestly.
And you were Flip Pressey because they said you were passing the ball around? That's what I remember.
But that was not a compliment.
Okay.
That was not like, hey, you're dishing
Straussism.
great assists. That was when Flip Pressey was throwing the ball in the stands. Seriously.
That's a Straussism.
Yes, for sure.
Rarely a compliment. All right. So, no, we had a show called The Midday Grind. You've been doing radio for a long time. And I believe I don't think I have to prove it. I think the longest running on-air sports colleague of mine.
Wow.
You and me. Well, we worked together from 2008. When did you leave? 22?
I left 2.5 years ago.
2022. My favorite part of Charlie leaving Fox 2, he said, hey, if you want, I'll stay on for a while. And they said, no, that's okay.
Well, not to get it all into it, but remember, do you remember this? I was going to stay on as a news reporter, a one-man band.
You wanted to be.
Do you remember this?
Yes, you wanted to be.
At this point, and really it's kind of how I feel now as well, I'm trying to think, I would have had, one kid at the time? At that point, all I wanted was more of a 9-to-5 schedule. And you just can't do that in sports. So I think I was going to do it for a year. That was maybe agreed to, and then things changed. I'm sure it's just a loosey-goosey time, like A-Rod said.
Pete said it was very loosey-goosey. So did you do steroids? It's so hard to say, Peter. It's so loosey-goosey.
Sure.
But you and I worked together for 14 years now. Chuck is one of those YouTube stars. I always laugh on TMZ or Entertainment Tonight when they interview somebody, and underneath their name, it'll say YouTube star. But you are. You're
I wish.
You're fully in on YouTube. You and Kenny Wallace, the Kenny Conversation. That's the bulk of your day, right? Is doing YouTube videos?
For sure. And specifically with Kenny, it's not just YouTube. I'd call it our own little media network that we're trying to grow. I want us to be, we'll call it the poor man's Dirty Mo media. Dirty Mo is Dale Earnhardt Jr. So if that is the creme de la creme of the NASCAR racing, if we can just kind of keep chipping away and just maybe be half that, I think that would be fantastic. But yes.
So you have multiple segments, multiple shows
and platforms
underneath one umbrella.
Sure.
Where Denny Hamlin's really popular on a podcast, correct?
You know
is
what?
Is he on his own or so it's just his own thing?
Well, his podcast is with Dirty Mo Media.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yes.
Okay.
But Kenny did just have Denny Hamlin on the Kenny Conversation about 2 weeks ago.
But Hamlin would be an example of something like a subsidiary of Earnhardt.
Absolutely. And with the Kenny Wallace, whatever you want to call it, we have YouTube. We have 2 YouTube channels. One of them is the main one, just Kenny Wallace. The other one's called QuickTime Kenny Wallace for some shorter clips. We have a podcast. We also have this, I guess you'd call it an affiliate deal with this streaming service called Racing America. So we'll give them a couple shows per month. They put it on their streaming service, which you can get, I think, on Roku and TV as well.
It's a TV show.
Well, it's if Kenny, so I just edited the other day. Kenny interviews Denny Hamlin about 90 minutes. We put that on YouTube. We put that on podcasts. We do a bunch of little shorter clips because people sometimes want to consume them in smaller parts. But then Racing America says, hey, we either want a 90-minute show or a 60-minute show, so I have to cut it into, for a 60-minute show, 43 minutes, with the commercials, so on and so forth. So we give them a couple shows per month as well.
All right, so the Kenny Conversation is with NASCAR elite, both current, former.
Yes.
Does everybody say yes because he knows everybody? And I forgot, you and I started putting him on the radio because he had just moved back in town. We wanted to do something on Daytona, and he's such a character. We're like, we should have him on more often. I didn't realize how much of a following he had from working at Fox.
Enormous.
And I didn't realize, I didn't consume, I'm sorry to the mothership, I didn't consume
Thanks
a
a
lot
lot
of the NASCAR Fox coverage, but he was one of the stars on Fox TV for a while. I didn't realize that. So that's carried over. He knows all these guys, even though he hasn't raced in a long time.
But he's still.
Well, I know he's still active.
Races.
Dirt track.
I mean, he just won last night at Highland Speedway in Highland, Illinois. Highland, home of Jake Odorizzi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How about that? So does he have a hard time getting people on, or do they all say yes?
Everybody eventually.
Who are you chasing that won't do it?
So
let's call him out here.
It's
on
funny.
Dirty Chuck Radio.
He was chasing Denny Hamlin for a couple years, got him. He was chasing Danica Patrick for a long time. And these people are so busy also. Danica Patrick has her own podcast. She does F1 stuff. She's in Europe all the time. I'll tell you a funny story, though. I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but so just the other day, we are going to get Darrell Waltrip on. Darrell Waltrip, I think 3-time champ. He was the broadcaster. He's on the Cars movie, Jaws, great talker.
Yiggity, yiggity, yiggity. Is
yes,
that him?
Boogity, boogity, boogity.
Boogity, boogity, boogity. See, I wasn't watching closely.
Right. And so what's funny, though, is because I'm also, look, I'm on the channel, but it's mostly Kenny, but I do my own podcast on the channel. I appear, I kind of report, but also I'm kind of the tech producer guy. So I have helped basically every big-time NASCAR driver over the last, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years, I basically help them with their computer. So, like, just the other day, we could not figure out, Darrell Waltrip, great guy, but he could not figure out how to get Google Chrome on his computer, and we couldn't do the interview. So I'm FaceTiming. I've been FaceTiming with Rusty and Darrell Waltrip and Brad Keselowski.
Don't they have handlers to do that?
Well, most of them do. Well, Darrell Waltrip, I think he's got to be in his 70s. He's at home, and you hate to say it, but I said, maybe we could get a child to come. One of your kids, I'm saying.
Child.
No, I'm saying one of your kids.
Somebody younger than you, sir.
Look, but it is hard sometimes to set up, hey, I'm on Safari. What's Google Chrome? I got to upload. I have to do the new download of the new update. So it's hard sometimes. But we're doing it all remote. But you do have to have your computer kind of set up. That was the first time, actually, we didn't do the interview. In like 2.5 years, we couldn't figure it out just the other day.
So what's the next step? Get him to a studio somewhere or just call his people and we'll figure it out?
We basically
Chuck's
said,
favorite line, we'll figure it out.
We basically said if there's anybody who could figure out Google Chrome in your household or a neighbor,
let us know.
Could they hook it up? Text me. We'll make sure we're good to go before we try next time.
Most awkward Zoom I think I did during the pandemic. It was Dave Parker. I think somebody wrote a book about him, the Cobra, just legendary player,
sure,
borderline Hall of Famer. But the shot looked terrible, and I think he's had some health issues, so his wife was there helping. But I just said, "Hi, Mr. Parker, how are you?" And it's set up by some media company. I said, "Is there any way you could move away from that window?" And he just kind of had this look like, "Who's this Kilborn on the other side?" So awkward. But I'm like, "Is there okay? Can they center it a little?" I'm so sorry to do this, but I just want you to look your best, and you have to kind of lay on a little syrup there because you feel like an idiot.
I do
these
that
famous people
all the time. Okay. Sometimes I'm surprised. Can they not see that their chin is at the bottom of the screen and there's 80% of the screen is above their head? Like, can they not?
City SC puts out videos every week, and I say, the coach is taking up a third of the screen.
It's horrible.
I don't get it.
And lighting, like, can we get away from the window?
The Cardinals,
it's not that
every
difficult.
Zoom is in front of a window.
It's unbelievable.
And I'm like, nobody in the building can say. I mean, I've said on a Cardinal Zoom, any way you can move away from the window. I think it's like Mo, like, "Oh, sorry, didn't mean to inconvenience you." And I'm like, well, no, I want it to look good. Chuck Marlow is the guest. Charlie Marlow, longtime Fox 2, also AM radio, recently Hot Take Central.
I just saw Seth.
You did?
Seth Close is in here. He's wearing a button-down shirt. He's a sales guy.
He's
what
all
is
dressed
he?
up. No, he's a Swiss Army knife.
Sure.
He's doing a lot of valuable things here.
Seth Close.
Seth Close. That was your guy.
Sure.
Did you race him?
No, I think he raced
Cam?
everybody but me because I'm slow, so I never even tried.
Okay.
He beat Cam. He beat Matt Whitener. He beat a random listener.
You went out into the parking lot and would race people.
Sure, that's maybe that's why the station didn't last.
Shades of Rich Eisen. I always blame Charlie for the demise of my radio career. I had a show at KTRS, was going fine. Kept talking me into go, "Oh, dude, we got to do a show at 590. We got to do a show." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well."
You're like for KTRS. Are you kind of Billy Martin? They always bring you back.
Billy Martin. I've only been here twice.
Okay, how many times at the other
place?
Can we say that?
In
It
the
doesn't even
590
exist
realm,
anymore, right?
no,
So we can say 590.
I'm not quite at the Slayton Balzer level where they've all been. Dan Caesar's the only one who has an official scorecard.
Sure.
On all of this. But do you miss the daily outlet, or do you have enough with your YouTubes and all of that you're talking every day anyway, right? You're still a broadcaster every day.
I call myself a content creator. But yes, what's funny is when the news got out there and it gets in the paper, you know how it is. All these people text me, "Oh, are you okay? Is everything good? Is there anything I can do? Can I bring over a dinner? Like I'm going to be poor and homeless."
Drop off food.
Although, yes, please drop off food. And it also goes to show you, I always say that nobody really knows what we're doing. They don't really know what station we're on or TV, radio. "Oh, are you on radio?" Okay. Like I had not been full-time on 590 for 6 months. I was coming on basically for about an hour and 15 minutes twice a week and then filling in when Jimmy the Cat Hayes was on with the Cardinals, traveling with the Cardinals. But yeah, like I've been full-time YouTube for at least a couple years.
It's funny because people will come up to me, "Hey, you still doing TV?" I'm like, last I checked. Like, "Hey, thanks for tuning in."
I get that now, I'm telling you. So I was on TV for 14 years? I get it more now than ever. So I was at Walgreens the other day getting something late at night, and I'm getting some. It's like probably 10 o'clock at night, and the cashier goes, "Oh, you're not on tonight or night off?" Yeah. And I was like, "Are you talking about Fox 2? He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, I haven't been on for 2.5 years." But
Thanks for tuning in.
They're not watching either.
No.
Yeah.
And I've told McGraw this here at KTRS. I was at Macy's or something, and I give him my credit card, and this woman looks down and she said, "Oh, you're the guy on McGraw's show." Like, sure. That's how you know me. Let's talk a little
but hold
sports,
on.
Chuck.
So I feel like you'd be kind of offended by that.
Oh,
like, I have several of my own shows, TV and radio.
Or this is my most paranoid version. If somebody says, "Hey, I really enjoy the show," and then they walk away, I've been known to follow them and say, "Well, which show are you talking? Do you listen to the radio show? Which show are you talking about? TKO? What is it exactly that we're talking about?" So I have been a little paranoid in that regard. I got a bunch of randoms, but you're kind of my college football guy.
Oh, no.
Brendan should be in here for this because you love college football.
Can I just say, though, before you ask me all these questions, I don't even know if I can be considered a sports guy anymore.
You're a content creator.
Okay, but basically, you can ask me anything NASCAR. I know NASCAR. I know some Cardinals. Since I left TV and then since I left radio, I got a couple kids now, and I'm like 90% NASCAR, and everything else, I'm definitely a casual fan.
This is one of my bits. So I'm always texting myself comedy bits that would be a thing. News talk host on radio versus sports talk host. The news talk host actually like reads a little bit about what happened at the White House and the economy and gets ready for the guests. And I filled in on the morning show here. And we have all these ABC correspondents, and you want to ask intelligent questions. Somebody may be over in the Gaza Strip talking about Hamas. You got to be ready for that. Then we have White House. What's the latest in the polling? All that stuff. Sports talk host watches like an inning of the game.
Or just looks at the box score
comes
afterwards.
In the next day and say, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on with these guys. They're bums, these guys. This team's terrible." And then the caller, like, "What'd you think of the 6th inning there when they took out JoJo Romero?" "Yeah, I don't like a lot of the decisions these guys make. This Ollie, man, he's driving me crazy." So sports talk host is really a thing where you just come in and then you just get on a rant. "Yeah, I don't know. This franchise, they don't care. They're not going. These guys they got nothing in store for you fans. Stop wasting your hard-earned money." And in the words of LaRusso, you watch a game? Remember we'd go down to the stadium. You watch the game? How many times do we want to say to him, "Well, I had to go out to Rams Park for a couple interviews, and then I had to swing by this SLU basketball thing, so I actually didn't watch the game."
Well, to be fair, one of my favorite phrases. I feel like I really did pay very close attention when I was working at Fox 2. The last year or so, I actually felt bad on Hot Take Central with Cam and Jim, especially if it was anything other than Cardinals. It'd be a Blues game. I just wouldn't watch. I just wouldn't watch the game at all. And then they'd talk about it, and I would feel bad because I want to be more of a contributor, but I just really had no interest in watching. But if the Blues are in the playoffs, right, I'm into it. But that's one thing, Blues, and then the soccer I haven't gotten into because we didn't have to cover soccer, not half. I'm saying we didn't get to cover soccer.
Enough, yes.
Fortunate enough to cover soccer. But for me locally, it's pretty much all Cardinals, but I am excited about Mizzou football. It should be a great season.
Well, it is crazy to think, and we have great Mizzou coverage on this station, and Brendan, Weesey, and Ben Frederickson break down a lot of Mizzou. They're really good at this. It is kind of crazy to think the SEC preseason rankings. Okay, Mizzou being 6th. That sounds, you're ahead of Oklahoma. You're ahead of Texas A&M. You're way ahead of Florida. You're ahead of Tennessee. Like, it's unbelievable that brand. Who are you behind? Well, Georgia's pretty good. Alabama's pretty good.
Ole Miss.
Texas is pretty good. Ole Miss and LSU. I mean, those are the top 5.
Did you see the Stephen A. Smith clip?
Well, I didn't watch it.
It's good.
But I heard he was incredulous that Mizzou could potentially beat Alabama or be better than Alabama, right?
Yes.
Because he doesn't know.
Doesn't watch.
Right.
Like me.
How does he? That whole thing I'll never understand. And then during the NBA Finals, they were showing video of him arriving in the building.
Sure.
With his suit and strutting along. God bless him. It's working. He's making millions and people watch. I don't quite get it, though. How can you sit there and rant when you really don't know enough about it?
I do think, though, he really is into NBA and NFL. My favorite Stephen A. Smith story, which is kind of like this, like the other day, when the gentleman said, I have Mizzou 4th on ESPN in front of Alabama, Stephen A. just, Mizzou, Missouri, right? And it's just like, just because it's Mizzou and it's not a school he's heard of, probably forgot they were really good last year, returning everybody. But because I'm a Ohio State fan, years ago, remember Dwayne Haskins, R.I.P., he passed away in that car crash, but he had a great season. Actually, he's the reason Joe Burrow transferred to LSU. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody can look this up, I think he threw 50 touchdown passes the one year that he was the starter at Ohio State, went right to the NFL. Stephen A. Smith, clearly without watching any of the games, said, he's a running quarterback. The only reason is because he's black. Right? This guy threw 50 touchdowns. He wasn't a running quarterback at all. Stephen A. just assumed because he was a black quarterback that he was a running quarterback. Yes. Never clearly watched him play the entire season.
I guarantee Drinkwitz will have some quip about Stephen A. Do you think, like this Sunday is a big media day for Mizzou down in Columbia? I guarantee Drinkwitz will have some. Well, Stephen A. doesn't think we're that good. I understand. Hey, Stephen A., what's the A stand for? Anonymous. Like he'll have some. He's workshopping it right now. But I was just going to say, you're a college football fan, big time. And you grow up in Ohio. You love Ohio State. And I do like the fact Missouri beats Ohio State.
Let's get into it.
In the Cotton Bowl. And then after the fact, they say, well, this was great, but we're moving on. Every press release now says the Missouri Tigers, who last year went 11-2, after winning the Cotton Bowl over Ohio State, it's attached to like every clip, press release, or drink will say, we're not going to talk about it anymore. Then he's got like the trophy sitting next to him from the Cotton Bowl.
But they should.
It was great. It was a great season. I just think it's funny because Ohio State last year to them was a joke, a disaster, right? Because they didn't win.
They lost 2 games probably?
Right. Isn't that crazy? I looked at Brian Day's record one day. It was like 60-8, something like that, in the Big Ten, 30-3. And people are like, yeah, he's got to go. I mean, insane.
And with Ryan Day, basically against Georgia that year, remember the field goal at the end? I think it was 40, 50 yards. But if Ohio State kicks that field goal, they had Georgia beat in that game. And then they would have beaten TCU, who Georgia beat, 65-7 or something. So it's funny because Ohio State fans do kind of want maybe Ryan Day to leave. He was this close to a national championship, was that 2-3 years ago? Yeah.
And what do they want? Urban Meyer? Is that because who's better than a guy that's that kind of record? That's that good every year.
There was some Fickle talk a couple years ago. Luke Fickle, who's now at Wisconsin.
And you got Pace's kid who might be going to Ohio State. But my question is about Mizzou. Do you think, because we're always a little paranoid when it's Mizzou over the years, you get all excited. Like last year was great. A couple of those Pinkel teams, 2013, 2014, nobody was predicting, especially 13. And these great seasons just sort of happen. It's rare for a Mizzou product, basketball, football, recruiting, whether it's Michael Porter Jr. or even with DGB, things just don't always work out. Do you think...
That's one way of describing it,
DGB. Just didn't work out. Was he last seen jumping out of a house or something? Remember? Man. It's terrible. It's sad. But my question is for Mizzou fans, is it okay to lean in on this one and say, you know what, we should be, schedule-wise, we should be in the conversation to maybe be a playoff team? Not guaranteed, but is it safe to go there if you're a Mizzou fan?
Look, I think you should definitely
This
be
is from
excited.
content creator Charlie Marlow.
Content creator, not influencer, Charlie Marlow. I think you have to be excited about this team if you're Mizzou. Last year was great. We hope this year is going to be great. I'm not an alum, but I am excited for our local teams when they do well. I will say this, and I have no real stats and data behind this. I like Mizzou more flying under the radar. And I'm talking about
That's
basketball.
kind of my question,
yes,
yeah.
Basketball, football. I like Mizzou when they can sneak up on folks. I don't love Mizzou with the expectations, but I still think they should, barring a huge injury, they should be knocking on the door to be a playoff team with the 12 teams, you would think.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thought is they do seem historically to be better. I mean, a year ago, I would have guessed Drinkwitz would be fired if they went 5 wins, and I thought that he and DRF were not necessarily on the same page. I wouldn't have guessed she'd be gone, he'd be here. The way it all sort of worked out. You remember after the Middle Tennessee State game, we were like, oh, where's the offense? It's terrible. How you can even win any games? You're trying to sell tickets down at the Dome, and it's done a 180. So we're going to talk more sports. We're also just the randoms. My guy, Charlie Marlow, in studio with us. And back on the Kilcoyne Conversation, Charlie Marlow, formerly of Fox 2, local YouTube. You can check out all the great Kenny Wallace content. I love Kenny because he will retweet almost anything that I'll put out there.
Sure.
I'll just say, like, I was cutting my grass today, and, boy, it was hot. And he's like, I see you, Martin. I hear you. Good for you for getting out and cutting your grass. And then he retweets it to, like, 400,000 people. Even this appearance, I just said an election update because you were asking for – you were doing polling, who people would vote for. You had an unofficial poll. So then I just said election.
No, it was official.
Okay.
It was the official Charlie
Plus
Marlow
or minus.
Twitter poll.
And I said, Charlie will join me on the show. And then I think Kenny retweeted like 27,000 views just for the mention that you would be here on the show. Do you miss any of the day-to-day, though? I mean, you had a schedule, working late hours, working weekends, sports-wise. Do you miss any of it? I would think going to the games, maybe.
Yes. I miss going to the games. I still would like to go to a game, let's say, every 2 weeks, I feel like. Go to a big game. I'd like to still go to all the big Cardinal games, Blues games. I need to go to a soccer game.
But are you talking about as a fan, or would you miss even covering it? Like just to go.
I don't know if I miss covering it, to be honest with you.
With 48 live shots, you're at the All-Star game, but you never actually get inside because you do 28 live shots in a row outside.
I did get to go to a lot of All-Star games there. All the ones that were drivable for a
You went
while.
to
There were
Kansas City.
all Kansas City, Cleveland,
Cincinnati,
Minnesota.
Oh, we did go to that.
And then the St. Louis one, I actually didn't go to the game, but a lot of the pageantry around it. I got to be around a lot of that.
And you were at the Cubs World Series because your brother lives in Cleveland. It just sort of worked out, right?
Yes.
You were willing and able, so you got to go to those. But you were at the Ohio State Zeke year.
Mm-hmm.
Did they win the championship?
They did. That was the first ever college football playoff. They beat Oregon and Marcus Mariota.
And Zeke went wild. Was it in the semifinal game or the final?
Well, he went wild in all of the games. Against Alabama, he had the big run. I think the 75-yard touchdown. They call it right through the heart of the South. That's the big. He always autographs that run on pictures and stuff.
Was that Urban?
That was Urban. That was the year that Cardale Jones came in for the last 3 games. They smoked Wisconsin like 59-zip or something. Remember, they basically jumped TCU. Because they beat Wisconsin so big in the Big Ten Championship, I think they jumped TCU into that 4 spot.
So you got to go to that game. The one that I've always said, I wish I was there, and it was the Michael Walker game, the Pittsburgh game. So you were that one. You were actually in the building, right? You're at PNC Park.
Well, if we're going to get into the stories of not being in the building for big moments.
You watched the game? What if Matheny had said, you watched the game?
I was there. Sometimes doing live shots during the game while the game's on another network. I get it, though. You have to fill time. I get it. I'm just kind of half complaining.
Hey, we're content creators at Fox, too.
Sure. The 2 big moments I really miss not being in the basically able to see it is David Freese. All the David Freese stuff, you and I, Game 6, are down there in the, as Burrow would say, the bowels of Busch Stadium. And then also, I believe I was walking back from Ballpark Village doing a live shot when Matt Adams hit the bomb off Clayton Kershaw. So after I missed some big moments, I said, I'm never going to miss these moments again. So the one moment I made sure I watched was Travis Ishikawa just ending it.
So you were in San Francisco that day.
But I was going to go down to get ready for interviews.
Right.
Funny story about this, too. But I was like, I want to watch this. This is a huge moment. What's going to happen? And, of course, Ishikawa hits the home run. And then I also remember that day I had to do a live shot. So I missed Michael Wacha's main. I mean, Michael Wacha, I'm guessing, probably did podium, probably did the clubhouse. I go in there. He's already done a million interviews. I'd missed it because I'm doing a Fox 2 live shot. And I asked him, and he was a rookie at that. Was he a rookie or next year?
Are you talking about
14?
In 14.
I guess second
So
year.
after he'd served up the homer.
Yes. Worst moment probably of his career.
Yes.
Probably,
It was his second year.
yes.
First full year.
Sure. And already done a bunch of interviews. And I think he did it. So he was great to do it. But I think he started crying. I'm sure he'd already cried twice, right?
Right.
And I had to do then one more interview just for me because I
Hey,
missed
it's Charlie Fox 2. I'm sure you already answered the question, but what the hell happened?
Speaking of crying, what else am I going to bring up with the Cardinals?
Colton Wong.
Colton Wong. I was there for Colton Wong crying.
off.
I think, honestly, I might have been the one that asked him the question to make him cry. And then, of course, we had to bring that up for the next 10 years.
Well, and every time, yeah, it wasn't us, but announcer. And Colton Wong, he's done a nice job for this team. Of course, picked off at the World Series, cost him a big moment. And that poor guy always got asked about that. But you were there. That was a pretty good run when you think about
Awesome run.
2011. I remember us just in Dallas crushing the TGI Fridays because it was right next to our hotel.
I think it was Applebee's.
Or Applebee's.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I conflate those two a lot. I misremembered, as Roger Clemens would say. But yeah, the 2011 run, 2012. I mean, there's just a lot of. And then you were the Rams guy on all those trips. You'd have to interview Fisher, and they would lose more times than not. And I would always call or text, and I'd say, "How is Fisher?" You'd say, "He's fine. He makes $7 million a year." Like I think he was the easiest coach to ever cover. In
Sure.
terms, I never saw him snap at a reporter, or even stupid rules that Spags had, all those weird rules. Hey, Matt, you can't put your pencil on that table. Don't you read the rules around here? It still drives me crazy. And then Fisher came in, and it was not a substitute teacher, but just like a grown-up. Like, hey, let's just focus on what matters. And then they didn't really focus on what matters because they didn't win.
For sure. He never snapped at me, but he did make one comment, which was quasi-condescending. I probably asked it in a bad way, and I think the game was they went to play at the time the Washington Redskins. It might have been the game where they rolled out the
All the picks.
But did they win that game?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But the Washington wanted
RG3.
RG3. And to get him, they had to trade with the Rams. They gave him all those picks.
A million picks.
So the Rams used all those picks to take this guy, this guy, this guy. And he sent all of those picks out for the opening coin toss, right?
And nobody in the media got it. He had to tell Jim Thomas in the post game what happened. So his troll job, so that people would know what it was.
Is it really a troll job if nobody notices?
Right. That's how dumb we all work.
We
but no.
sent out those picks. You may have noticed there by design.
So I don't remember what game it was, but they got beat by somebody in a game that was a surprise. You never thought, they were actually, maybe it was the year they went 7-8-1 or something, so they weren't that bad. They just got beat. And I asked them a question like, you have a performance like this. You guys play so poorly. Is this something do you see anything like this coming in the week of practice? I probably asked it poorly, and he was like, of course we didn't see it coming. It was just like, you dumbass. Of course. Because if you'd have saw it coming, you'd have fixed it, right? But he's like, he just looked at me with this condescending, of course we didn't see it coming. But he was great to me, but that was the one I remember.
But the trick is you don't want to ask stupid questions, but it's basically, boy, you guys suck today.
Sure.
Why'd you suck so bad? And how do you say that to somebody? It's their whole job. They stay all these hours. They got all this game footage. They're all ready, and they're like, yeah, how come you guys suck so bad?
Can I bring up the one that I feel – I never really called myself a journalist, but the one game that
nobody else did either.
Correct. But I feel bad at was the game – was it Kellen Clemens who basically had a concussion on the field? Was it Kellen Clemens?
That sounds right.
And I did it was one of those weird things where I feel like we didn't see that replay – until after the fact, and then it became this big thing in the NFL of how the hell do you put this guy back on the field? And Fisher said you had that third-party spotter. But after the fact of that game, if you watch those replays of literally Kellen Clemens' head bouncing on the turf, it's crazy that he ever got to. Did he play again? I mean, that game, I think he fell down at one point. Like,
I'm
he
getting
stumbled.
mixed up with Case Keenum, who is still in the league, right?
Maybe it was Case Keenum.
Well,
I don't
maybe.
know. It was somebody like that. Remember what I'm talking about? It was the big concussion.
Yeah, loosely.
Okay, somebody can look it up.
I feel like
Nobody will. It's fine.
I feel like every Monday after the Rams would lose, and even in the building out there, they knew it as like Fisher's Monday diversion. They'd fire the offensive coordinator, or he'd get in a verbal spat with a player on another team that didn't like the way they did. So, I read the comments out of Minnesota today, and it'll lead to this whole Sports Center. Oh, by the way, they lost 40-10 the day before, but the Monday topic was always about something other than that. So the question was, do you miss it? You had a good run, and those Seattle, Phoenix, San Francisco trips with Fisher. I brought this up with
Arizona.
Chris Long last year. I said, Coach Fish would take you guys out 2 days early. He goes, oh, man, Coach Fish knew how to travel. They would stay like the night. You don't need to be in San Francisco on Friday for a Sunday game.
Oh.
You don't need to be in Seattle on Friday.
It was great.
You disagree?
Oh, it was awesome.
Well, I know it was.
Great trips, 4 seasons, couple nights. Rennie Knott and I would just post up at the hotel bar and just pound beers for about 36 straight hours. Now, I'm not saying I'd go do something for Fox too, but I'm saying
Oh, you were working, yeah.
we'd get there. You'd get there a little bit late. You have a nice dinner. You drink some beers. The next day, you watch college football all day. Continue to drink. One day, I think Rennie and I had like 3 meals at the same restaurant.
I'll have another cheeseburger. Will there be cheese on my cheeseburger? Oh, man.
That's the thing about Rennie, though, too. I love Rennie. I need to go to lunch with Rennie. But Rennie
He's
would
probably
always
eating a cheeseburger right now.
That's the thing. But we would go to San Francisco, Seattle, some of the best seafood you could get anywhere, and he would always order a cheeseburger. I'm like, get something. We're here. There's great fish.
And you order a cheeseburger.
Yes. Or wings.
I also have new socks. I'll tweet that out later. That's your former
I love Rennie.
I love Rennie as well. We should get him in here.
We should.
I'm brainstorming. What's we? We got a show again?
What about
me, Chuck?
Mo?
I had Mo Drummond and Chris Pelican in this studio.
How about that?
We reunited the
Before
Foxhole.
me. Interesting.
Yeah. That was the radio that radio show preceded you.
Okay.
You replaced Pelican, I think.
Yeah. And he now lives probably 100 yards from me, and he also runs the soccer program at Mary Queen. So he emails me about kids soccer.
See? It's
Camps and stuff.
All full circle. We're still on group text with Zach Choate, who was one of my favorite guys to work with, but he was always pessimistic.
100%.
Doom, gloom, every day.
Also, way too early in his career. You can be doom and gloom after 10 years. You can't be at day one.
Do you know what happened when he was hired? So Zach Choate, local guy, gets hired 2013. I'm in the office, our news director, Audrey Prywich, and she said, hey, I know how you sports guys are. You're also cynical. You make fun of everybody and, talk crap about everything, and the station's terrible. Everything's terrible. She said, try not to do it with the new guy right away. Let him break in. And she was kind of half kidding, but kind of saying, just don't poison him right away. I walk back to the sports office. Zach is sitting next to Rich Gould, and Rich like, and another thing. That's just a waste of time and so stupid. He's given the whole litany. Now, you could go down to Cardinals tomorrow. They probably don't want to talk to you, but you could go down if you think it's necessary. Here's what I do. Do we have any tape from the last time they talked? That's just fine with me. They're not going to say anything. And I'm like, Audrey just wanted, it's too late.
Yep.
By the time I made the walk from the news director's office to the sports office, Rich had already gotten to him.
That was a fun room, though. That was a fun sports office for a lot of years.
Yeah, we had great times, and this was a good time. The Kilcoyne Conversation, our buddy Chuck Marlow. Don't be a stranger. We'll have you back in for our NASCAR breakdown, which
Ooh, I like that.
is one of those shows I've been meaning to do.
Let's do it. Seriously.
All right, great talk.